And a friend of the family who was taking care of this woman's young daughter rushed her to the hospital, but to dress her just happened to grab the first two items from the laundry pile, which happened to be mismatched plaids, and then took the daughter to the hospital.
Keep in touch with daughter.
Oh, yes, doctor. This is Mrs. Fields' daughter.
Hi. Everything's going to be okay.
Doctor, code in 437 again.
She was being resuscitated in one room, and the doctor and nurse had essentially given up on her, but were still making some effort.
Doctor, there is no pulse.
The woman who was being resuscitated found that neither the doctor nor the nurse were able to see or hear her.
Yes, doctor.
So she left the room entirely where her body was being resuscitated. In a waiting room in another part of the hospital, she saw her daughter in mismatched plaids, and she was very puzzled as to why this would be. She tried to ask her friend, why is my daughter wearing mismatched plaids? But of course the friend was unable to see or hear her. Later on, after she regained consciousness, she confronted the doctor with this. Why was my daughter wearing mismatched plaids?
What is it?
Who dressed my daughter?
What?
Who let her out of the house like that? She doesn't even match.
I made it perfectly clear no one was to come in until I got back.
Doctor, absolutely no one has been in this room, I promise. I don't understand.
Then I don't... How does she know?
On occasion, these patients are able to tell us things that were going on even outside of the rooms where their bodies were being resuscitated, and are able to give us very tantalizing corroborations that suggest that indeed they really were out of their bodies as they say they were. One woman related to me watching her body from above, and she tried to communicate with her doctor and nurse and asked them what was going on. She found that they weren't able to see or hear her. She left the room entirely, and just left her own physical body behind being resuscitated. And in a hallway outside of a waiting room, she happened to see her brother-in-law, who was assembled there with the rest of the family, waiting what they imagined to be the death of this woman.
Bob, how you doing? Hi, Tom. Everything all right? No. I'm scheduled to fly out of here in an hour to close on a major account. It looks like Carol's getting ready to kick the bucket. I guess I'll have to stick around and be a pallbearer. Gee, that's too bad, Bob. I know. I could lose the entire account.
When she regained consciousness in the hospital and her brother-in-law came to visit her, she confronted him with this.
I heard you.
Heard me? What do you mean? Heard when?
Am I missing something here?
The next time I die, Bob, you just go on that business trip. I'll be just fine.
What do you mean? I didn't...
I'll gladly get another pallbearer.
What are you guys talking about?
Of course, many people in talking about near-death experiences want to go immediately to the explanation in supernatural terms that these experiences are what they purport to be, that they do seem to be visions of life after death. The difficulty with that is that life after death cannot be proven scientifically. I think that life after death is still something that has to be accepted pretty much on a kind of faith. And that the near-death experiences, as impressive as they are, don't really give us scientific evidence that we live after we die. However, the simple-minded scientific explanations that have been proposed also don't fit, in my opinion. These experiences are far more complex, a very different kind of phenomenon than the after effects of drugs or medications or even psychological factors. I think these experiences are not just wish fulfillment for reasons that are very complicated. These experiences change people's lives in a very positive way, unlike wish-fulfilling fantasies. I don't know what the ultimate explanation of them is. For now, I just go on accepting that I take these reports more or less at face value, that these people do get a glimpse of what's always been called the beyond or the life after death. That's not something that will ever be scientifically proved. It's just my subjective impression after talking with 3,000 people who've been through this.
Near-death experiences, are they fantasies or fabrications? Can we ignore the fact that these people have died and then were resuscitated, bringing back to this world what they experienced beyond? Dr. Moody has familiarized the Western world with the concept of near-death experience. He did not discover this phenomena. There are similar accounts occurring in literature and art throughout history. The Ascension to the Empyrean, painted by Bosch in the 15th century, depicts 4 phases of the near-death experience as defined in Moody's book: floating out of the body, the journey through a tunnel, heading toward a bright light, accompanied by heavenly beings. Long before Bosch painted this piece, we read of similar accounts in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, dating AD 800. Some of the descriptions of the soul journeying after physical death are similar to those mentioned in near-death experiences. One of the oldest pieces of literature in the world is the Egyptian Book of the Dead, an extraordinary collection of prayers and spells for guiding into the next world, dating back to 2500 BC. No culture has been as firmly centered on belief in the afterlife than ancient Egypt. The ancient pharaohs were buried with provision of food, possessions, even their slaves buried alive to accompany their master to the next life. So we see this contemplation of afterlife is nothing new, nor are the experiences Moody has defined. He's given them a name, near-death experience. The response to Moody's work by the medical community has been hard to gauge. Many physicians do not want to be contaminated with spiritual matters. What prompted Moody's career of research of near-death experiences? He was a student in the University of Virginia. His professor told of a psychiatrist who had a most remarkable experience with death that had dramatically changed his life.
It was the 1st of December, 1943. Private George Ritchie was stationed at Camp Barkley, Texas. He had just been chosen to attend the Medical College of Virginia and was waiting to be sent to Richmond to begin classes. A week before he was to board the train, he checked into a hospital due to an upper respiratory infection. The day before his scheduled departure, he felt his condition worsening, but tried desperately to prove that his health was satisfactory. It was the last train out of Camp Barkley that week. Missing the train to Richmond would possibly mean missing the opportunity to attend medical school. Ritchie spent that entire night in coughing spasms with an uncontrollable fever. He was aware that his condition was severe. His fever was abnormally high. He had already been trained as a medical and surgical technician, so he was in a state of shock when he saw that the thermometer had reached over 106 degrees. The medical staff arrived to transport him by ambulance to have an updated chest x-ray done. Private Ritchie collapsed, and his condition deteriorated throughout the next 24 hours. Eventually, he was pronounced dead. His chart reading expired from double lobar pneumonia. Then the officer gave orders to prep him for the morgue. From there, George Ritchie tells of what he experienced during the time that he was pronounced dead.
From a subjective point of view, I'll have to tell you what I was experiencing. I knew I had missed my train. So I'm looking all around this rather dark room trying to find my uniform. Couldn't find it and decided that I didn't have any more time to waste there, so I come on out of this little room into the hall, and I'm crossing, getting ready to go outside when I see this ward boy coming down. I turned around to him to tell him to watch where he was going, and either he walked through me or I through him. Now this kind of shocked me, but when I had made up my mind I was going to get to Richmond, I was going to get to Richmond, so this didn't shock me. I go on out through the door, going to the outside. As soon as I got outside of that door, I'm suddenly up into the air.